All right, welcome back to another episode, Fans Huddle podcast. I want to start off quickly before I introduce you, Derek. If you're liking these videos, please hit like and subscribe. It really helps us out. We post new episodes once a week, so get involved. And if you have any questions or comments, please reach out to us. We're very open to chatting about them. So, no Chris today. So, Chris, feel better, buddy. He's a little bit under the weather. But Derek's here. Derek, how's your week been, mate?
It's been great. I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to these championship games coming up.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Just when you think it's slowing down, all these coaching hirings start happening, and some interesting ones, some good stories coming out of it. We'll talk about it. Let's kick it off, though, with the wrap-up of the college football season, the national championship game. Ohio State champions defeated Notre Dame. It was closer than what the score was closer than what the game was. It was pretty dominant, but congratulations to Ohio. Congratulations to Ryan Day. And also congratulations to Notre Dame. Big achievement for them. But in the end, outclassed, outmatched. When you spend $20 million in the transfer portal, you want to hope that you succeed, and that's what happened. Let's go through the game. What do you make of it overall? The quality of the game, the performance from both teams.
Yeah, obviously, beginning of the game, you saw this mark like Notre Dame chewed up a lot of clock, and it seemed like Riley Leonard was just, they were just running him nonstop. He'd get 3 or 4 yards here or there. And, they made a significant drive in the beginning, got the touchdown. And then Ohio State bounced back like we expected. And I just thought, and especially in the first half, it's like Notre Dame just kept trying to do the same thing with Riley Leonard. Like, let's just, it's like taking the snap, let's run it.
That's all they can do.
The snap, let's run it. That's all they could do. There was no passing game there in the first half. Ohio State struck early, kept Will Howard just had a great first half. I think he started the game. What was it? Maybe like 10, 11, 12 straight
11
completions.
11. Yeah.
And we said that, a key for Notre Dame would be stopping their passing attack. And that just didn't happen. And their receivers were catching everything, it seemed like. So, yeah, first half, I was just kind of thought the game was like, this is over. I think by the time we knew it, it was 31 to whatever, 3 or whatever it was.
31-7.
31-7. And like you said, second half, obviously Notre Dame try to make a little comeback there. They did. I thought they did open up their offense a little bit in the second half. Passing attack was a little bit better. Great House, their wide receiver, he had a pretty good game.
Yeah, but like I seem that they didn't utilize him much at all until they had to, and he stepped up like one-on-one catches, open routes. I've criticized Riley Leonard and his ability to pass. He threw some good passes to him, but I feel like he was the only guy he was really looking for. But it was working. They got him back in the game. Back to your point about that first drive. I felt like, their strength is through Riley Leonard running the ball, and so they were like, "Let's do it." But then he threw up on the sideline. He was that exhausted from that drive. It's not sustainable. So as soon as they had to go back to running the ball traditionally and passing, they got shut down. So it wasn't the most sustainable attack. But I think Freeman and their team had a good game plan to say, we're just going to, that first drive, this is what we're doing what we're good at, and then we'll try and just get into an arm wrestle. Didn't work, but I see what they were trying to do.
And I think a turning point, like you said too, they showed that little clip of Riley Leonard on the sideline after that first try, and he looked like he was done. Like,
he threw up.
Yeah, like I was just like, oh boy, they're in trouble already after that one drive.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame really needed a significant stop to start that second half, and once Ohio State just drove down the field and scored again, I think it put the game out of reach. But their defense, I will say, their second half, obviously, I don't know how much it had to do with Ohio State maybe laying off the gas a little bit, coverage-wise. But they did, obviously, offense looked a lot better in the second half for Notre Dame. Their defense made a couple of good stops, but little too late. But I'm with you. Ohio State, great season. Especially after that devastating Michigan loss, they proved everyone wrong, and Ryan Day keeps his job.
You saw the emotion on his face, and when he spoke, it was. Obviously he's happy, but there was a lot of relief there. It was like, finally, like since that Michigan loss, it's just been nonstop battering, and for the players, for him, for everyone. And so it was, you could see he was relieved that they got over the hump. And I mean, they really ran through that playoff tree. So good for them. I mean, they had a great season, um, and they've got a bright future. I mean, Jeremiah Smith. I heard he's got a $4
Oh,
million
yeah.
offer to enter the portal, but
Yeah.
I'm sure Ohio State will match that or beat it. But they've got some great players coming through. So hey, good for him. Um, what about Notre Dame? What does the future look like for them? I mean, Marcus Freeman, I think, is a great coach. I
Yeah.
didn't realize he would have been the first black coach to win a national championship. So there was a lot. I won't say pressure, but there was a lot of just there's a lot of story behind his run, and he's young. He seems to have players that want to play for him, and he installs belief in these players. Like again, I don't think Riley Leonard's a great player, great quarterback, but he went out there and played above his ability, and I think Freeman has a lot to do with that. So they're in good standing moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, he's a young coach. I think he's 38. He's obviously
Yeah,
got that program going in the right direction. Notre Dame's a big brand college football program, so like they're going to be able to recruit. And I don't know if you saw this, but depending on how far you advance into the playoffs,
yeah,
they get these payouts. And so with Notre Dame being an independent, that money doesn't go to a conference to be spread among the teams. Notre Dame gets to keep all that, and I think it was $20 million that they raked in
yeah,
during their run there. That's going
yeah,
all to their program.
yeah, and it's great for them, but I don't love it because it doesn't incentivize them to join a conference at all. I don't like that they're an independent school. I've never have. But you get $20 million just for yourself. What makes you want to go and join a conference? You're not going to. You've got the TV deal with the NBC, which I'm sure is massive. So that looks like they're going to be independent for the foreseeable future, especially after these payouts. So
Yeah,
it
I
is
think
how
the
it
future's bright.
goes. Um, the obvious thing is that they'll never be able to get that first round bye. But this season proved that that's not really a bad thing. And I think there has been a lot of talk about reseeding the playoffs and it being on the rankings and not the championship. So again, that benefits them. So all this talk about Notre Dame having to join a Big Ten or somewhere and merge, I don't think is going to happen anytime soon.
No, I don't think so.
No. Final rankings, obviously Ohio State first, Notre Dame second. Big Ten, four in the top 10, I believe. Ohio State two, I think Oregon may have been three, Penn State five or something like that. Pretty dominant. I know there's been a lot of talk about the quality of the Big Ten versus the SEC. I've always said I think it's closer than what some people think. What do you think of the final rankings? Pretty reflective of the season. Um,
Yeah,
there's a
and I don't put a whole lot of weight into the final rankings. Obviously, like at the end of the day, it was Notre Dame, Ohio State made it to the championship game. Next year's a whole new year, but yeah, I've been, I've always thought, especially in the last decade or so, probably, in the last probably 15 years, SEC football to me has been kind of like, I don't know, premier, it is the best of the best. And this year, I think we saw a little bit of a turning of the tide there. I mean, Big Ten, obviously, like I'll give them credit. I mean, they had some great teams that did pretty well during the season and also made it into the college football playoffs. I think NILs have a lot to do with like I said, the competition of what we're going to see
yeah.
moving forward between the two conferences. But I think moving forward, we definitely know where the best teams are, right? Like it's either SEC or Big Ten, and it's going to be a showdown every year. And so we
Mhm.
got to look forward to that.
Yeah, and you have a guy like Nick Saban exit the SEC. It's going to impact the whole conference just because of how dominant he was as a coach from a recruiting to play stance. So, yeah, I think it's a good rivalry brewing between the Big Ten and the SEC,
Yep.
and it's a lot closer than what it has been in the last decade, and so I'm excited about that. But again, congratulations to Ohio State. Won the first ever 4-team
Yes.
national championship, win the first ever 12-team. So,
Congratulations, Ohio State. I didn't think I'd say it, but hey, they won it. got to give them their props.
That'll do it. Any final thoughts on the college football season before we move on? And I'm sure we'll start talking about transfer portals and rule changes in the coming months. But from a football standpoint, I think pretty much wrap it up.
Yeah, wrap it up, put a bow on it, send it off. We'll get ready for next year, but I'll miss it. I love some college football. I've always been a big college football guy, and yeah, I'll have to sit out for the next. I guess what we have, maybe spring training, the spring days, like games or whatever they do. It's like March or April.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
So we'll have a few months. We'll have those, and then I'll listen to Paul Feinbaum for the next 5 to 6 months and get ready for the next season.
That's a long 6 months.
Yeah.
Oh, hey Ben.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Back
my dog. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so NFL, we're down to the last 4 teams. So football in itself is just wrapping up. It's been a long season. Divisional round was awesome. We had some really close games. We had some upsets. We saw some good quarterback play, some bad quarterback play. We saw some refereeing controversies. We saw a lot of people blaming the refs again. We saw Saquon just take over again. And yeah, let's talk about it. First up, Lamar versus Allen. Look, a lot of snow, so it probably wasn't the quarterback versus quarterback shootout that people were expecting, but it was still a very high quality game. Came down to one play at the end. But in the snow, the Bills got it done at home. Both teams reeling. We said earlier, the talk coming out is going to be, oh, one player moves on, the other quarterback can't win in the playoffs, and that's their biggest gripe. So Lamar falls short again, didn't have great stats either. Disappointing for him, and he was clearly disappointed. But overall, it was a close game, and you can't have every team go through, and they just missed out. But what'd you make of this game and performance from both teams?
Yeah, I was looking really forward to this game. It was a good game, exciting. Like you said, a lot of snow obviously affected some play calling there. I think how the flow of the game went. But Allen, I thought was pretty clutch in certain moments of that game and did what he had to do. And Lamar, I thought he did okay. He didn't put up the stats that we know Lamar to put up, but obviously, a lot of drop balls on that end of the on that side of the football for the Ravens, and I did not help. Lamar was obviously frustrated with some of that. But I just liked it was a great game. It came down, like you said, to a final 2-point conversion play, and we got some good football out of it. And Bills got the victory in advance. But yeah, doesn't take away from what Lamar did all season, in my opinion. He's a great quarterback, and so
yeah, I still think Lamar had a good. Josh Allen had a good game though. Like, I mean, he was 16 of 22. He was only 127 yards, only 5.8 yards average. So a lot of thinking and dunking, as Chris said last time. But he scored 2 rushing touchdowns. Really leaned in on the run a lot. So I think they played to the conditions. And this is why I think why the Bills have been a lot better this year than they have previously, because they haven't had to lean in on a bunch of players. Last year was Allen and Stephon Diggs. That was how they won. Now it's kind of shared around a little bit. They're not trying to cater to a player's demands or anything. They're just out there winning. And I mean, yeah, this was a game managing game from Allen, but in the snow in those conditions, that's what it had to be. And they got the win. That's the end of that's the last laugh. Lamar had a good game, 18 of 25, 254, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's a good game, but they lost.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's a team game, and I think Josh Allen played, and the Bills coached and played to the game itself. Again, let's talk about the drop. So poor Mark Andrews, tough, and there's not much else you can say about it. He was open. The ball wasn't perfect, but it should have been caught. Leaning away, I think the problem was as well when you watch it live, the camera kind of cut out the bottom corner, like there was people in the way, so you couldn't quite tell instantly. So I thought he was in, but dropped it, and I felt sorry for him. He obviously got a lot of hate. Shout out to the Bills fans. I think they donated 100,000 to his charity, so that was good.
Yeah,
but it was pretty devastated. A lot of players didn't talk to the media afterwards, but a lot of players came out and supported him. But man, that's going to be tough for fans, for the players, for him himself. Tough way to go out.
Yeah, like I said, that killed him. A couple of drop balls there, and like you said, Lamar really played a really good game, but that snow limited what Lamar could do with his legs. I definitely feel like. But offensively, I think the Ravens did what they had to do to win that game. They fell a little short. But yeah, I think I read an article that Lamar actually went and spoke with Mark Andrews after the game, gave him a hug, and like kind of embraced him. Like, hey, if like it came down to that, that made us lose the game, then obviously you can't blame that all on him. I mean, there was a whole football game. Things could have been entirely different, and it's a lot of pressure. I guess us watching as fans, we don't realize how much pressure some of these guys are on. I mean, big time games, a lot of pressure on your shoulders.
Yeah, and it just sucks that he doesn't get next week to redeem himself. Like, oh, let's push forward. It's like I
Yeah,
have to go through a whole off season now, training camp,
I
season.
think
I have
we
to go through everything
lost.
to get back out there. That's
Oh,
tough.
there you go. Yep.
All right. Oh, last thing too. Sorry, that drop. People say, "Oh, he cost them the game, cost them the game." There's still a minute 30 to go on the clock. Minute 33. So that's more than enough time for the Bills to have moved down into field goal range. So it may have not have even made a difference to the outcome of the game. I don't know why people are. And to your point, like, there's a whole football game that led to that moment. So I don't know why people are harping on this one thing as it cost them, because with a minute 33 on the clock, that's more than enough time for a field goal. So we don't know what would have happened, but it is what it is. Bills move on, and they go up against the Chiefs.
Oh boy.
Mahomes is 3-0 against Josh Allen in the playoffs. They've had some classic games. You go back a couple of years to do the divisional round, the 13-second play, the 13-second field goal from the Chiefs, and then the overtime win, and that changed the rule of overtime in the playoffs. Then you have last year where the Bills at home probably should have won, and they were outplayed again. And then they had the 2020 AFC Championship game, they were blown out. So can they get it done this time? The whole of America is cheering for the Bills. I think Josh Allen's excited about it, but man, this is one where he's got to step up. It's going to be tough though. I don't know if they can do it. The Chiefs have looked pretty good lately, but I don't know. I'm hoping. Well, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I am rooting for the Bills to come out on top of this game because, let's put it kindly, is I think the Chiefs have caught so many breaks this year.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says. I know like, oh, you're jumping on that wagon. They get all these breaks. The refs are on their side. Listen, I've watched these games, and there's some just horrible calls that are being made in the Chiefs' favor. Okay, so I guess just to take it back to the Bills and Chiefs, I'm pulling for the Bills. Obviously, like you said, there's a history there. I do think the Bills had in their favor against the Ravens, like we just talked about, having that home game and being in those conditions probably helped them out. But it's going to be a different story going into Arrowhead.
Yeah.
And so they're going to need to play their best ball, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because the Chiefs offense are going to be looking to move it. And Bills defense really needs to step up in this game if they're going to win it.
Yeah, so Patrick Mahomes has come under a bit of scrutiny this week because Troy Aikman called him out live on the call, where he's running out of bounds and he pulls up and kind of waits for the defender to initiate contact, and as the defender goes to make contact, he steps out and gets those roughing the passer or unnecessary roughness calls. So that it's a bit of gamemanship there. But the Chiefs love this. Okay, it's been the world against the Chiefs for the last couple of seasons because, like the Patriots dynasty, everyone kind of gets over it. We loved them back in 2018 when they were doing these things. Now we're over it. So I think they kind of thrive on this. Everyone's against us. Look, now they're saying that Patrick flops out of bounds, which I think he does. There's a lot. So I'm interested to see this game. It's like, again, I said this about the Texans last week. The Chiefs have won a lot of one-score games, right? They get there in the end and something happens. I think for the Bills to win, they've got to get an arm wrestle. They've got to stay with them. Stay with them. They're not going to go out to a big lead. It's not going to happen. It's going to be a close game. Just be with them in the last quarter. The Texans were almost there. Like the Texans got to I think it was like 17-14 at one stage. Like they got there and the Chiefs pulled away. The Bills are a better team than the Texans. So the Bills just have to get there. As I said, their running game is going quite well. Josh Allen is playing really well. They've got the tools to do it. They're just going to stick with them. The Bills' defense is what worries me because in terms of sticking with them, it's going to be an arm wrestle. If the defense can't contain Mahomes, can't contain that offense, and it gets away from them, it's going to be tough. But the Chiefs haven't been offensively great this year. Last few weeks they have. So we're going to see what happens. But if I'm the Bills, you just want to stick with them, get into an arm wrestle, get to that fourth quarter where it's a close game, and put it on Josh Allen's shoulders. So, hey, go win us this. Go get us there. Go and do what Joe Burrow did a couple of years ago at Arrowhead, okay? Like, put it on his shoulders, keep it close, have the ball last, go and win the game. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great one.
And I think it's important to the Bills and their fan base to win. They need this win because I think if they take another loss in the AFC Championship to the Chiefs, like, that'd be pretty devastating to that whole franchise.
Well,
I'm not sure they rebound again after that. I mean, they've been so close so many times. They need this win.
Right. And that's the thing. You've got this generational quarterback in Josh Allen. If he can't beat another generational quarterback in Patrick Mahomes ever, you start to think, well, we've just wasted the quality of this quarterback. And someone like Joe Burrow has been able to get over the line. But guys like Lamar Jackson, guys like Josh Allen haven't yet. So this is his opportunity to kind of wipe that slate clean. So if I'm Josh Allen, I'm excited about the challenge. I'm putting up, but all your chips are in because it's win and wipe it, get the monkey off your back, and take the Bills to a Super Bowl, or it's lose and have to face these questions for at least another year until you meet again in the playoffs. So it's a great year from him and the Bills. Again, you made the championship game. It's awesome, but go and get it done. What do you think? I mean, if you had to take a pick right now, who are you picking and why?
I'm taking the Bills. I believe in them. I think this is their year. I just think the Chiefs have just been in too many close ones where they barely have edged out these victories. And like you said, I think Bills are a really good, sound football team. As long as their defense can limit some of the, stop the bleeding some, I think they're going to be okay. And I think Josh Allen's fired up, and I think he knows how important this game is. I'm taking the Bills. I'm going to take the Bills.
I wish I could ride with you. I want to take the Bills. I want the Bills to win. I can't go past the Chiefs. And here's the reason why. If I look at offense, they're pretty much on par, but I'm gonna trust Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. So I give them a slight edge on offense. And then when I look at defense, I just think the Chiefs' defense is much stronger. Home field advantage. It's all lining up for a three-peat.
I know, refs wearing the red and yellow stripes.
But again, my head says the Chiefs, my heart says the Bills. I've got a lot of friends that are Bills fans, and they've been through a lot over the last 5 years. So I really want them to get over the line. I just don't know if it's going to happen. But we'll see. Again, this is Josh Allen's chance. This is his moment. Everyone, the whole of America is rooting for you. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's move on to the Eagles. Saquon Barkley, man, unreal. We are witnessing the resurgence of the running back, and it's purely down to one player and how unbelievable he's been. He had 2 long-range touchdowns again on the weekend. He had over 190 yards. I don't have the exact stats on me, but single-handedly won that team the game. The Eagles continue to play average across the board, except for running back, and they're getting over the line. What are you making of them? Right now, 6 weeks ago, I was looking at an Eagles team that was unstoppable because you can run the ball and then you can throw the ball. Hurts's passing has been questionable lately, so you're leaning a lot heavier into Saquon, which is working. But if it doesn't, where do they turn? What do you make of the Eagles? We'll talk about their game this week, but overall, how how they played in the weekend and the current state of their team.
Here's what I think of the Eagles. I think mediocre passing game. I think great running game. Like you said, if running game is going strong, they are in good hands. The minute it is stopped, I worry about them on the offensive side of the ball. Then on the flip side, on the defense side of the ball, which I love because they have all these Georgia guys, which I love that. They are. It's hard to know when they're. It's like one game they can be like the best defense you ever seen, and then another game it's like what mental errors. Like what's going on.
Yeah.
Not getting to the quarterback, not getting the pressure like they should. So it's just kind of tricky with the Eagles. They're such a toss-up team for me, so it's really hard for me to make out. They can be either like the best team in the NFL, or they could be like middle of the pack team.
Right.
So
yeah,
it'd be interesting to see because with the game coming up, in my opinion, especially facing this Commanders, if I'm the defensive coordinator for the Commanders, I'm like, listen, we're going to do everything in our power to stop Saquon Barkley, and like, if they're going to beat us, we're going to make them throw it on us.
Yeah, and that seems to be the way that it goes, but I have to believe that that's what the Rams said. I had to believe that's what the Packers said. Like, let's make him throw. And Saquon just seems unstoppable at the moment. I mean, look, again, the Philly O-line as well is the best in the league. So they are so great at creating gaps. And then Saquon is just so great at seeing those gaps, exploiting those gaps, and exploding through those gaps. I don't know how you stop that. Like, no matter what, you can say, we're going to stack the box. We're going to put 7 guys up front and just, like you said, make him throw it. Saquon still seems to find a way. Shout out to your boy, Jalen Carter. 2 sacks, 3 quarterback hits. He's a menace.
He had a great game. You saw he picked up Matthew Stafford, and kind of like the same way he did at Jada Daniels in the SC championship game. It was a throwback when he picked him up and threw his hand up in the air. But like they can run Saquon like 3 or 4 times in a row. He might get 4 yards, but then it's like that 5th one. It's like he hits that gap and he's gone. I mean,
exactly.
It's like one big run, and like he could take it up for 80 something yards and then strike in 5 seconds.
Yeah, and I apologize too. I said he had over 190. He had 205 yards at a 7.9 average, 2 touchdowns, 78 yards was his longest. So right now they're flying, and they're going to go into this game as favorites. But again, like I said, the whole of America is cheering for the Bills. The whole of America is loving this Commander story. So quick recap. Dan Snyder sells the team. The stadium is in terrible condition, needs a lot of work done. There's these stories come out about Dan Snyder and how he treats employees, how he runs the team, kind of forces his hand to sell. He doesn't want to sell, but he does. They get Jaden Daniels. They sack their coach. They get Dan Quinn, who's been a head coach and had a little bit of success, but there was a bit of, we're not sure about him. He goes and signs some veterans, some leaders, and they get 12 wins. They make the playoffs. They win their first playoff game since 1991, I think. And then they upset the number 1 team in the NFC, the Lions, with a rookie quarterback. I didn't mention that part too. Now here they are. It's a great story. Can they win? And if they can, how do they do it?
I think the Commanders can win. Jaden Daniels is going to have a really, really good game. They're going to have to they're going to have to give him time to make his throws and his reads. So the key to that is stopping, obviously, the Eagles' defensive line.
Yeah.
And on the defensive side of the ball, like I said, if they can play some sound football and try to just, you're not going to stop Saquon, but if you can just limit those big home runs that he does, where he just takes off for 80, 70 yards, eliminate some of that, they can, and like you said, stick around, they have a chance. And who would not love to see Commanders and Bills in a Super Bowl?
Oh, man.
No one would have guessed that at the beginning of the year.
It'll be awesome. So I said for the Bills and Chiefs, you need to get into an arm wrestle and just stay with them. I think the opposite here for the Commanders. I think you don't want to get into an arm wrestle. You want to be explosive the way they were against Detroit. They're explosive, big plays, big runs, Scary Terry, averaging 22 yards a reception in that game. Brilliant.
Yeah.
You want to explode out of there and just get a lead, and then you scare the Eagles into throwing the ball. So like I said, it's going to be tough to force them into throwing the ball, but what if you scare them into throwing the ball? You guys have an early 10-point lead, or you early 13-point lead and you're running downfield, and all of a sudden the Eagles feel like they have to start throwing and leaning on the throw a little bit. There's your opportunity. One thing Washington did really well last week, I know they conceded 31 points, but they got turnovers in the red zone, turnovers when they needed it, and that was the difference between two teams. So I'm really excited for this one. I think that the Commanders are going in there just playing some fun football. They don't really care. They got nothing to lose. They've overachieved. They're great. They've got this great culture going. They've got a quarterback they all believe in. You have Terry McLaughlin, who has been a top 10 quarterback, wide receiver for years, but never really got the recognition. He's now leading that team. You see his pregame speech, like it got me pumped up. Like he's ready to go. Commanders are ready to go. I like the Commanders in this one. There's something. I love a good story, right? On the AFC side, you have these villains, the Chiefs, who I just think are going to continue to be the villain. But on the NFC side, I think you have this great story, and I'd love nothing more for it to go all the way to the Super Bowl. Again, Jaden Daniels joins elite company as very few rookie quarterbacks to play in the NFC Championship game. But man, what a turnaround! And also,
I think we're flipped a little bit because I think I had the Bills beating the Chiefs, but on this one, I want the Bills to win. I have them winning. On this one, I want the Commanders to win, but I'm not picking them for the win this year. Obviously, I'm going to go with the Eagles, but I would not be disappointed if the Commanders won, though.
Hey, look, you and I both want the same thing, right? We want the Bills and Commanders. We're just going different opinions based on what we know. But again, that's what makes NFC and AFC championships so much fun, because generally they're a toss-up. Unless it's to the two best teams in the conference going at it, and I'm really excited. It's my favorite weekend of the year. There's always big games. Shout out to Detroit. I know they're disappointed. Their defensive injuries finally caught up with them. And we've been saying that for weeks, and I think they've known that. I think that's been on the back of their mind a little bit. How's this defense going to hold up? And unfortunately, it didn't work out for them. But great season overall. You still got a very good roster. Your coaching staff has been depleted, so we'll see how that impacts them next year. But man, when luck's on your side and they start dropping like flies, it catches up to you. So they got caught out, but they're going to be a good team for the foreseeable future. Good for them.
Yeah. The coordinators, obviously, like you said, it's a big hit. But I think Dan Campbell, just as a head coach, I love the guy.
Yeah.
His players love playing for him. So, I think you said, I think the future's bright in Detroit. They can just stay healthy. Wouldn't surprise me seeing them in the big one in the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah.
To make a Super Bowl. And I think they have the roster to do it. They just need to stay healthy.
Yeah, and it just shows how hard it is to win a Super Bowl. You can have the best roster and have the best coaching and be that dominant, but injuries or just one day where you don't show up and play at your absolute best and your season's done. It's not the NBA, and I'm not trying to diss the NBA or all those baseball. I love baseball, where they have this 7-game series, so you play one bad game, you can make it work again. It is really tough. I think Detroit fans are learning that, but again, from where Detroit was 3-4 years ago to where they are now, they've got to be excited.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so big championship weekend. Derek's going the Bills and Eagles. I'm going the Chiefs and Commanders, but we both hope it's the Bills and Commanders. So
Yes.
We'll see. We'll be back next week to talk about those games. But for the remainder of this show, we have a lot of coaching changes to go through. So we touched on them a little bit. We'll start with Ben Johnson to the Bears. This one made perfect sense. The Bears needed to put an offensive mind with Caleb Williams and get him improving. Ben Johnson is the best offensive coordinator in the league. The only doubts that a few of us had, I think Chris had them, and I kind of agreed with him, is the Bears as an attractive offer as other roles that were available. But at the end of the day, Johnson, I guess he sees something in Caleb. It's a good quarterback to want to work with, and we'll see. But I mean, home run signing for them. The only thing I'll say is it's a big difference between being a coordinator and being a head coach, okay? Because a head coach really drives the culture. The coordinators drive the game plan. So he's an excellent game planning coordinator, play caller, excellent. How does he go handling the head coaching duties where you really don't have the time to be the main play caller? You can be, but you're not in all those meetings. You're driving that culture. He's learnt from the best in terms of culture driving in Dan Campbell, but you just don't know. It's like when you select a quarterback out of the draft. You don't know how they're going to transition. So that's the first thing. He's not proven, and some of these other hirings we'll talk about where they are more proven and they've gone for that over the play calling. But at the end of the day, I think it's the right decision. They need someone for Caleb. He showed signs this year, but obviously wasn't as consistent as what people liked. Go and get the best offensive mind to help him. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I just really love the hire. I think it was a great hire for that franchise. Like you said, I do think there's a significant difference between head coach and being offensive coordinator. So as long as he can drive that culture, which he should, because he, like you said, he learned from one of the best, and he surrounds himself with, really good staff that can implement great game plans of what he designs or wants, then I think Chicago will be, in great hands. And I'm glad they went the offensive route this time.
Yeah, had to,
Yep.
right? Next signing, the other side of the ball on Detroit, their defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn is at the Jets. We'll talk about it, but this is a great story, okay? So the Jets drafted him in 1994. Pete Carroll was actually head coach.
Oh,
Little
nice.
shout out there. But when he first entered coaching, so from an entry-level scout, he would tell all of his friends his dream job was to coach the New York Jets. So he wanted to go back and coach the team that drafted him. So this is awesome. I think there's a lot of passion there, which is something that New York needs. Okay, this is a dysfunctional franchise similar to the Bears. They just need someone that is going to go in there with a bit of passion and that cares for this franchise. I think he cares for them, and I hope that leads to a culture that produces a little bit more than what's happened lately. I think he did a fantastic job with the Lions this year defensively with all their injuries, like incredible job. So let's see, he's got a lot to deal with. Aaron Rodgers is going to be his first, decision he has to make.
Yep.
But overall, in terms of trying to bring someone into this team that is going to change the culture, I think he's a great pick.
Yeah, him being a former player, obviously, it was his dream job. Here's my problem with the New York Jets is I feel they could put some of the best coaches, as a head coach for the New York Jets, and they're still going to be disappointed because I don't think the culture is so bad in the office, the ownership of the team, that it just trickles down, man, and it just sucks all the blood out of you.
It does.
And so I like Aaron Glenn a lot. I just hope that this was the right choice for him, because maybe if he had waited it out another year or two, maybe there'd been another opportunity. But I understand why he took it. It was his dream job. I just hope that they allow the man to do his job and get the culture going in the right direction, and their owner can just stay the heck out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's always been the issue with the New York Jets for the last 2 decades. It's been ownership.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's obviously the biggest call out, right? How's the ownership going to react to this? And we'll see. I think Robert Sala's biggest mistake he made was he lent into Aaron Rodgers way too much. Just him and over there, I forgot his name already. Their old GM. They went and signed the receivers he wanted. They allowed him to be absent and from training camps and all these things, and that led to a poor culture. I think Aaron Glenn's going to build a great culture, and the Jets on paper have they have some great players. Garrett Wilson's a good player. Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, Bryce Hall. They got some good nucleus players there that you can build on. You're right though. The biggest call out is how do you deal with ownership? Does ownership, was that part of the conversations? Does Aaron Glenn go, I'll come to you guys, but I want XYZ control? They still haven't hired a GM yet, so that's something that needs to get done. But you're right. Can the owners step out of the way? Can their kids get out of the way? Can they stop looking at Madden to see who they should hire and just let these guys do their job? That's what you want to happen. Will it happen or not? I don't know. But again, for a guy that was drafted by the Jets in 1994, what's that, 30 years ago. Now he's back coaching his dream job. Real happy for him. And I think he brings some passion that they need.
Yeah,
All
and
right,
I guarantee you, Aaron, that conversation had to happen because the Aaron Glenn's. I've seen enough interviews with him. He's a smart guy.
Right.
He doesn't live in a cave. He understands everything that's been going on around that franchise for however long. I guarantee you, when he went in those conversations, he's like, "Listen, if I'm going to be your guy, you're going to have to let me do my job."
Right.
And let's hope they let him do it.
Yeah, and I do wonder if all of these available coaches that were never really connected to the Jets was uh, a what am I trying to say?
Like they already had
Was
their
a
mindset of the guy they wanted.
well, yeah. I mean, like, was Ben Johnson saying like, I'm not going to go coach the Jets because of all these stories? Was it so? Was that maybe a realization from the ownership that, hey, we're not getting the guys we want anymore. Maybe we need to let these guys run it a little bit better. So we'll see what
Mhm.
happens. But interested to see how that goes. Next one, Jags GM Bulky gone. This is kind of interesting. I mean, the Khan came out ever since Khan came out and said, well, we'll see what happens with the head coach hiring and how he gels with the GM, whether he stays or not. I thought that the writing was on the wall then. So he goes a little bit later. I feel like Bulky kind of went in and said, "You're going to say that about me? We need to find
Mhm.
a way out of here because this is not going to work." And
Yeah.
maybe going through the head coaching search, that's what happened. So he's gone. And this is a great story. So Liam Cohen, um, the Bucks OC, is now their head coach.
Mhm.
He's been the Rams OC in 2022, so he's under the McVay tree. But the interesting story about this is the Bucks had just re-signed him, and I then think that they offered him they re-signed him as the highest paid OC in the league. I think they had also offered him a big bonus to withdraw his name from this season's coaching carousel. That's the story I'm hearing. And then he shows up in the Jags organization. Someone within the organization goes and calls the Bucks and said, "Hey, I just saw Liam Cohen walking in the building," and apparently the Bucks are furious about this.
Mm.
He kind of ghosted them, left them in the cold a little bit. They had to find out through an insider at the Jags, which is a whole different story. That you have guys within the organization
Talking to each other. Yeah.
talking that quickly. That's a problem. But it makes for a nice little rivalry down there in Florida. But again, for the Jags, I think this is a good signing. You need someone that you brought in Doug Pederson to help out Trevor Lawrence, to progress him, to develop him. Did not work out. Here's another offensive guy under the McVay tree. Good signing.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's been around, like you said, for quite a while. A couple years ago, he was in college football. He was the offense coordinator for Kentucky, and they had one of their best offensive seasons that year. So, I mean, obviously, he knows what he's doing for the offensive side of the ball. But that is funny. I didn't realize that was a story out. I didn't know that had happened, and
Yeah, not the.
quite interesting.
I think Adam Schefter quoted, "He's never seen a team be so irate about losing an OC." Right? Because all these OCs have in their contract, if a head coaching role becomes available, I'm gone.
Yeah,
But again, apparently the Bucks were going to pay him a hefty little bonus to stay for another year, which he seemed to agree to, and then
that's what they're probably. I think it's like you said, they're aggravated because it sounds like he definitely was like, "Yeah, I'm going to be back," and then just kind of,
exactly.
I'm out.
And now the Bucks are having to scramble to find a replacement. But at the end of the day, it's business. You got to look out for
Yep.
yourself. It's a dangle a nice little carrot in front of you with a big bonus. I'm going to say yes to that, and then the Jacks come and go, well, screw the bonus. How about this? Whatever. Good for him. I'm excited to see how he goes. Again, the Jags are similar to a Jets and are similar to a Bears. They're just a dysfunctional franchise. But again, you've got a quarterback there that people coming out of college said he's going to be a guy. So he's got to get the best out of him. And I think for Trevor Lawrence, this is Trevor Lawrence's last chance because you go, oh, he's coaching Urban Meyer's terrible coaching. Didn't do well with Doug Pederson. If you get a third guy who's a well revered OC, offensive guy in the league, and he still can't develop you into a NFL caliber quarterback, again, we're entering bust territory. But good for the
They'll be.
Jags, the guy. Next one, Notre Dame's DC, Al Gordon. He is now the Bengals DC. Bengals needed this. I mean, the only way is up, right? Like their defense was terrible this year, cost them not just a playoff run, but possibly even a deep playoff run. What do you like about this? I mean, the Irish had a good defense this year, and so I think it's good, but I don't know if they have the personnel yet to make them a good defense. But what do you think about this?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting to me. I didn't have that one. Didn't think anything of Al Gordon going going to the NFL. So when it came out, I was a little surprised. But I guess on the other hand, like you said, like how can't get much worse than what it was. So
Yeah,
I'm not saying Al Gordon's a bad coach. I mean, obviously he's had a stint at Notre Dame a couple times. He was a head coach at Miami. I mean, he's what 60 something. Al Gordon's been around.
yeah.
I think NFL too, right? Like he had a previous history in the NFL. But yeah, obviously he has a ton of experience. He's been head coach. He's been assistant coach. He's been defensive coordinator. So hopefully, he brings some of that wisdom and helps that defensive side of the ball out, which they desperately need in Cincinnati because their offense is going to be great. They got I'm telling you, if Cincinnati gets a good defense going, they are going to be one of the scariest football teams in the league.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They got to get a deal done with Jamar, though. That's going to happen. It will happen, but it's got to.
Yeah.
Al Gordon actually was the linebackers coach at the Bengals in 2020-21. So when they made the Super Bowl, so he's obviously got some connections there. But yeah, you're right. He's been at the Lions. He's been at. He was the head coach Miami, Florida, for a while there. He's been at Penn State, Boston College, Virginia. He's been around. Since 1993, it looks like he's been coaching. So good for him. I think it's a good signing for them. But again, any improvement, and they're a playoff team, so the bar is low. All right, we got two more left, and these are two of my favorites. Pete Carroll is back in the NFL, the oldest ever head coach on day one. I think he's 73 years old.
Yep.
Walks around like he's 26 years old. Unreal. This people are going to call me maybe hypocritical because of how celebrated I was when he was let go by Seattle, but I think this is such a great signing for the Raiders. And here's the reason why, is because I never doubted the culture that Pete Carroll brought into Seattle. And he's all about having fun, right? He's very different to a Bill Belichick. He's very different to these hard guys. He's in there having fun. He's all about giving the players, their own, they're free to do their own thing, but
spotlight. Yep.
Exactly, but always be competing. And I don't think there's any team in the NFL that needs a culture do-over like the Raiders. Okay, you're based in Vegas. Ever since that you moved there, the Gruden years, you had Henry Ruggs doing his thing. You had a guy on Instagram live with a gun. They've never had a great culture. I don't think Pete's going there for any immediate success. They have no quarterback. They don't really have a great roster, but he'll make them compete. The Russell Wilson story is a great one, right? Like Russell Wilson was drafted as a third-string quarterback, and in one offseason, he was the starting quarterback that year after they had just paid Matt Flynn. So he doesn't care who you are. If he sees you putting in effort at work, at training and getting the best out of yourself, you're going to get an opportunity under Pete, and that just builds a great culture. So I think Tom Brady was very involved in this, and he's played against Tom Brady a lot. I think it's a really great signing. You agree?
Yeah, I love Pete Carroll. I've always liked Pete Carroll since his USC days.
Yeah.
He's one of the very few coaches that have had as much success in both college and NFL.
Only
And
four
that
coaches.
tells you what? That tells you he knows how to coach. It
Right.
tells you he knows how to manage people. He's always been a fun coach, and not in the sense where players like run over him, but he's fun, and I feel like he's very much like the dad you don't want to disappoint.
Yeah.
Like I have fun, but like the players definitely know, like like this guy's here to win, and he's going to put us in the best situation. And I love the hire. I love Pete Carroll. I've always liked Pete Carroll, and just excited to see him back in the league, wearing the black and silver. It'll be cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's going to be great fun. It's going to put the Raiders back in the spotlight. And like for Pete Carroll, the dude's 73, right? You could be down on the beach in Florida right now in some giant mansion, just sailing into the sunset. He just loves this stuff, right? He just loves getting out there. He's got so much energy. It's an awesome story too, because you had that whole Super Bowl where Tom Brady defeated Pete Carroll and the Seahawks in 2015.
Oh yeah, the throw, yeah,
The throw, yeah, at the one. And now 10 years later, you've got Tom Brady hiring Pete Carroll to come and coach the franchise that he now has part ownership in. It's a great story, really great signing. Again, I'm not expecting the Raiders to compete, to be anything successful in terms of wins, but I think we're going to see big improvement from them because you're going to see players competing. And I mean, the AFC West, you've got Sean Payton, Andy Reid, Pete Carroll, Jim Harbaugh. I'm really excited for the Jim and Pete rivalry to reignite itself. They had a big rivalry between the 49ers and Seahawks back in the day.
yeah. And you got to think, like, depending on how Jim Harbaugh's like coaching career goes, I mean, you're talking about 4 coaches that can potentially are going to be potentially NFL Hall of Famers.
Yeah,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? Like legendary coaches in that conference. That's wild. Like I guess I never thought about that until you just said that, but I'm like, wow, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're pulling out all the stops to try and beat the Chiefs. That's the thing. It's tough.
Yeah.
All right, and then our last signing, which happened just last night, so I'm really glad that we delayed this episode a little bit. But Brian Schottenheimer is now the coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Derek, yeah, I see you shaking your head. It's a head scratcher. I'll let you start because he's coached at both Georgia and he's coached at Seattle. So we both have opinions of him, and I'm interested to hear yours first.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about him. To be fair, like before this hire, I was a little taken back. I was like, "What?" And yeah, he was our offensive coordinator at UGA in 2015, and everyone was really psyched and like stoked about it. And like, just not a great year. I think in 2015 we went 8-5. Our offense, it was nothing crazy or explosive about us. Wasn't impressed. Next year, Kirby comes in. He obviously the staff turnover, so he's out. But yeah, he's bounced around the league. Because obviously his dad's really well known. He was a head coach for many, many years throughout the NFL. Um, it's kind of an interesting choice for the Dallas Cowboys, though. Out of all the coaches that they could have went and got for that job, you're telling me that's the best that you could do. But you know, I'm not trying to knock the guy. Obviously, like I guess I'm happy for him. Like you got the head coaching job for the Dallas Cowboys, but not impressed with his hire. And I don't see what he's done that throws like that's like, oh man, this is going to like really turn around their offensive side of their offensive game, or like turn this franchise around, or like Dallas be competitive with his head coaching like hire. I don't see it.
Um, yes. So quickly with Brian Schottenheimer, he was Seattle's offensive coordinator for 3 years. His last year was, I don't know if you remember this, but this was the let Russ cook season. And so what happened in this season was we had Russell Wilson, who was at the time was playing at an MVP level caliber, but we still just ran the ball. And what would happen in games is we'd fall behind, we'd get nowhere with the run, and then like the fourth quarter, we'd let Russ take over and we'd climb back and win. And so the offseason was this whole thing, like it was almost like a social media movement, like hashtag let Russ cook. It was like, you guys, put the ball in Russ's hand. This guy can do it. So 2020 came around and we let Russ cook. And we went 5-0 the first 5 games. Russ was putting up like record numbers. He was on pace to match Peyton Manning's touchdown record, killing it, right? But after 5 weeks, you got defenses that had a bit more tape and started to put in game plans and start to slow him down a little bit. And Schottenheimer had no plan B. It was like, we're still going to throw the ball. There's two deep safeties, and two linebackers. We're still going to throw it. And we went from this team that was scoring like 40 points a game to scoring like 17 or 18, 15. We leapt, like we crawled into the playoffs, and we lost to the Rams like 13-6 or something in the wild card. And he got fired after that. So he didn't have a plan B. He had this like, all right, we're going to throw the ball. Great, it's working. Teams have caught on to it. He didn't adapt to that. So it wasn't great. When I
It's
look
only
at him,
to adapt, right, Mark? I mean, you got to start running the ball.
you got to adapt. Like, If
And
it's
then
run the
and then you
ball,
start throwing some play action in there, and you start
play
yeah,
action,
yeah.
crossing routes, like it was DK Metcalf deep, Tyler Lockett deep,
Let's do it.
tight end underneath. It was real fun for the first 5 weeks, but it was
Mhm.
so frustrating. Like we lost to the Giants at home 17-12 in that season, and I think and Daniel Jones was out. It was like Colt McCoy or someone who was quarterback. It was
Not good.
brutal. Um, so here's my last thing I'll say about this, right? I look at his coaching career and it just doesn't look like he's ever been at a successful run with anyone as a coordinator, as a coach, whatever it is. Here's what I think. Dallas Cowboys might seem like an attractive job. I think it's extremely unattractive. And here's why. Dak Prescott's cap hit this year is 90 million. 90 million is his cap hit. Um, You've paid CD Lamb. You've got Micah Parsons who's going to want to get paid. There's nowhere for this money to go. You've got no cap space to do anything, right? You had a team that missed the playoffs last year, so they need a lot of improvement across the ball, weren't getting it. You're going to start losing players because if you re-sign Micah Parsons, and that's a big if, that's going to be 3 players taking up a huge chunk of your salary cap. So from a football team perspective, I don't think it's that attractive. And then you got Jerry Jones, right? This is a man that not only owns a team, but he's also the general manager. He's very involved and he pretty much wants someone that is just going to do everything he says, right?
Mhm.
And that rules out a guy like Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn who wants a little bit more control. You're not going to the Cowboys for control. You're going there to just do whatever Jerry says and work off that. And
Mhm.
that might have been attractive when they had a great roster with Tony Romo and even before that, Troy Aikman. You had a great quarterback and you could do it. But right now, it's not that attractive. So I think, personally, I don't think the Cowboys had that many coaches that were interested. And so now they're going to give this guy a shot. He was their offensive coordinator last year. He's in-house. He knows how they operate. Jerry obviously knows him and knows how he operates. Let's just put him in there, see how he goes while we try and figure out this mess on the team. And if he does well, if he overachieves, great. If he doesn't, well, we'll restructure Dak, we'll restructure CD, we'll start to move things around, we'll start to draft a little bit. We'll start to pick up draft picks, we'll trade some players, mini rebuild, and then bring someone in. That's what I think. I don't think there was many options out there for Dallas. I think this is more of a stopgap signing, but it's
Yeah.
just funny because Dallas fans have been so demanding. They haven't been in the NFC Championship since 1995, I think, and they kind of miss their window right now because they're in a really bad spot.
Yeah, you made some really good points. So maybe it's a combination of not many people wanting the job in the first place, or the good candidates that were out there didn't want to take that position. Like you said, Jerry Jones is going to want someone who's just going to do what he tells them,
Mm-hmm.
which is all making sense with his hire because Brian Schottenheimer, not a knock, but I mean I think he's got a lot of his opportunities through, like I said, his dad. His dad is, well, like I said, very well known coach in the NFL for a very long time. That last name carries some weight. And so, you know, honestly, the last time I felt like the Cowboys had an actual coach that like had his own mind and did his own things was probably in Jimmy Johnson days,
Absolutely.
and that didn't work out because obviously Jimmy Johnson was going to do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And,
Had a
that
huge
Jerry
falling out.
Jones ended up saying, okay, yeah, they had a huge falling out. And okay, bye. And they haven't been the same since.
Mm-mm.
So, um, again, we talked about this earlier. As long as Jerry Jones is involved,
I agree.
and I don't see it. And like you said,
Yeah.
have a lot of money and just a few players instead of it being distributed a little bit better to bring in a little more overall, like well-rounded roster. So
Yeah, and they had their chance. I mean, last year they were 12-5. You had Dak playing at MVP level, and you choked in the playoffs. You're the only second seed to lose to the 7th seed. So their window's closed. Their window was open for a bit. Their window was open in the Romo and Des Bryant years. They just haven't been able to get over that hump. They haven't got past the divisional round. It's crazy. And the common denominator of all this since the early 2000s has been Jerry Jones. But they ask him about, would you ever consider changing GM or hiring a director of football? And
oh
his
yeah,
answer is straight up like he almost
nope.
finds it disrespectful that he's even asked that question. So
Yeah, he's like, I bought this team. It's my team.
right,
I'm gonna be
he's like,
involved. Yeah, and like you said, like maybe we talked about this too. It's like maybe they don't want to win. I don't know. Like you said, more. It's just about like what how much money can you bring in other ways, other avenues, other venues for the franchise itself to with just the name Dallas Cowboys? Like
Yeah.
maybe it's not about satisfying the fan base or winning the national Super Bowl. Maybe it's just about like making money.
I mean, how much more do you want to make? How much he bought the team for? What it's worth? Like it's probably worth $10 billion right now. The team.
Yeah.
And he bought it for what? 2 billion, maybe even less. I think he might have even bought it for like 200 million.
No, it was when Jerry Jones bought it for I don't know what it was, but it was definitely under $1 billion, I believe.
He paid. Oh, I don't even want to say this number. He paid $140 million.
$140 million.
$140 million for the Cowboys, and the Dallas Cowboys now.
It's one of the top 3 or 4 franchises in the world.
Absolutely, they're now worth $10 billion. They actually are the number 1 most valuable sports franchise in the world.
Yeah.
So, how much more money do you want to make? You've literally made like thousands of percent on top
like
of your $100 million
increase,
right?
In value.
So yeah, I don't know. Again, I just think it's an ego thing. Like he said it. He goes, "No one can do this job as well as I do." Like that's truly what he believes. And I mean,
and it's so like it runs so far into that family too, where like even when he like after Jerry's gone, like it's going down to his son, and then it's going to go to his grandson, and it's like until someone breaks that cycle of like, man, like we want to win. Let me hire the right guys to get us there to win because they know a lot more about this than I do. Let me sit in my office suite and watch us win, but let me hire the right staff, the right coaches to get the job done. It's going to stay like that.
Is there any other team where the owner is the GM? I don't think there is.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I mean, that's like a GM these days are as important as the head coach.
Right.
They're the ones that build the salary cap out. They're the ones that draft the future. And it is so difficult. Like, how difficult is it to spend all this time looking at players to scout them and draft them? B, figure out your salary cap and everything that goes on there. And Jerry is also owning the team. Like he's doing so much. And again, I don't want to doubt his intelligence or his ability at 82 years old to be able to do all these things. I'm not doubting that. But to your point, you said it. Go and get an expert that this is their sole job. Your job is as a GM is to take this team from where they are and get them to a Super Bowl. That's it. Just do it.
And he's also like he's delegated all these special titles. Like it's the only franchise I know of. Like his son is doing is like the whatever of the is like his son's got a job, his daughter's got this job, his grandson had. It's like it's all family run, and it's like maybe you need to go hire from outside the family, and that can maybe help you
something. But again, they're a proud family, and they own the most valuable franchise in sports. So if that's what you want, you're doing a very good job. But if you want to win, you got to bring some other help in. Anyway, that's going to do us this week. Derek, any final thoughts?
No, man. Just looking forward, like I said, looking forward to the games tomorrow, and this has been fun. Sad college football is done with, but looking forward to the off season and us discussing some things going on this off season that'll be exciting and fun to talk about.
We do. We got 3 games left. Yeah, it's kind of I feel exhausted, and I've not played in one game, but I've consumed a lot of football. I'm looking forward to not seeing the Burger King or the Nationwide ads anymore, or the pharmaceutical ads. That has really rotted my brain. I don't watch TV outside of sports, so I'm looking forward to not seeing those ads, but I'm going to miss everything else.
Yeah.
But this is the Fan Tunnel podcast. As we said earlier, like and subscribe, and we'll be back next week to talk about the games we just witnessed, more coaching changes, more signings, and also preview the big game, Super Bowl, coming up as well. So peace out, everyone. Have a great weekend.
See ya.